All right. Thank you very much for having joined me, dear students. Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for being here present with me. It's quite a pleasure and an honor to share this class with you. From what I can see, just two of you have been able to join me. But anyways, I know that will be happening, or at least I expected something like that because I know that many of you were not told about this, that we will have this introductory class today. But it's totally fine because we are recording, and of course, the rest of your classmates are going to even themselves later on, right? Well, great. Let me then introduce myself. My name is Carlos Oliveira, and I'm going to be your teacher for the following weeks, okay? I am very much honored to start this new group with you. And it's actually, well, as I say, it's quite interesting always to start a new group to, of course, meet new people. And I'm very much honored to be with you. As I say, we're going to have time to know each other very well later on, don't worry. But well, and by the way, this 5 minutes of tolerance that if you saw, we had this 5 minutes of tolerance are always going to be like that, okay? That is to say, we're always going to have this 5 minutes waiting for you, just in case, of course, you have some delay. There are a lot of things going on, right, in our lives. Therefore, sometimes it's difficult to get very much punctual, but don't worry, because as I say, we're going to have this 5 minutes of tolerance, just in case somebody, of course, gets delayed and maybe struggles with the traffic. I don't know. A lot of things could happen, right? Well, great. So let me then continue. As I was telling you, today we're going to have this introductory class. And basically, we're going to be discussing some general aspects of our classes and also of the TOEFL exam, right? Because starting tomorrow, we're going to have a very, very deep analysis of the TOEFL exam. Of course, in all its different sections, because as you know, of course, I think until this point, the TOEFL exam consists in 4 different sections. That are the ones we have been learning throughout our entire life, right? Speaking, writing, reading, and listening. But nonetheless, of course, each of those sections has its own difficulties. And that is exactly what we're going to be trying to tackle during these weeks, right? The difficulties of each section, trying to understand as well the theoretical basis and the background that underlies everything. And then, of course, practicing that. Well, my experience, it's quite important, right, to have this blended learning somehow of theory and also practice. And well, let me tell you that in my life, I've taken this exam twice. So of course, I know how it's to be your shoes somehow, right? I know that all the stress, I know the, all the overwhelming quantity of practices you may be doing right now, or that you're going to start having later on in the future. But let me tell you that all the effort you're going to be suffering from, and of course the uncountable nights, maybe you're not going to sleep very well, etc., because you're going to be practicing for the exam, has its benefits. Certainly, trust me that it's quite, in my personal experience, it's quite delightful when you receive your test scores, and of course you got the score you were looking for. But yes, I say, I know what is it to be in your shoes. When I started preparing myself for the TOEFL exam, I didn't have any tutor or something. So I didn't have somebody to go and ask something to. But in this case, you have somebody, and that's me. Okay, so at any point, if you have some question or anything that I can help you with regard to the TOEFL exam, please, I'm always available for you. You can text me through WhatsApp. If you noticed, I already sent 2 messages, right, to the WhatsApp group. One with the instructions for today's class, and the other one was, well, the Zoom link, right? But please feel free to send a message, to text me at any point if you have any question with regard to the material we're going to be discussing later on, or with regard, for example, to the registering process, maybe, I don't know. I'm here to guide you, okay? To be that person I would have liked to have, as I say, when I prepare myself for the exam. But great. So today we're going to be discussing some introductory things. I have a presentation that I prepare for you, okay? So let me access such presentation, and we're going to start with today's class. Great. Well, first thing I wanted to make sure, of course, of mentioning is thank you very much for having chosen us, okay? Thank you very much for having joined Executive English. We are a Bolivian company that was founded in 2017, and since that time, more than 10,000 students have trusted us. So you're joining a very big family when you start with these classes. And as I say, it's an honor to be your professor in this case. and to have the opportunity, of course, to share these weeks with you. And I'm sure that we're going to be building up a family somehow, right? In the future weeks, and of course, the month we're going to have these classes. But great. So as I said, thank you very much for having chosen us. And well, you're going to notice that you have a lot of benefits for having chosen us. And all those benefits are going to be, of course, communicated to you in the future and in this class, actually. So you can be very much, let's say, well, you can expect that. You can have all those very high expectations. Well, fantastic. So after having said that, thank you very much for being with us. Well, let us discuss the first thing. I think that is important, of course, for us to talk. That from tomorrow on, okay, we're going to have this very important policy that the company always requires me to clarify and, of course, to notify my students about. That is, of course, the camera policy. So it's important that all students are being requested to have their cameras on at all times during the class, okay? Starting tomorrow on. Why? Well, because today's class, as I said in the WhatsApp group, is not going to be a frequent class. That is to say, it's just for today that we're going to have this class on Monday. Our classes are normally from Tuesdays until Fridays, right? But today's class is merely, as I say, a unique and very special class because it's just for introductory matters to discuss this type of things, policies, to discuss how our class is going to be organized, the agenda we're going to have, the schedule, a lot of things, right, that are basic. So yeah, as I say, please, from tomorrow on, very important to have your cameras on. According to my superiors, this is a very important thing for you to follow, given that they consider, well, your learning, it's going to be very much enhanced and perfected through your cameras on, given that, well, they are going to be somehow receiving and absorbing the material we're going to discuss more, let's say, more appropriately. But as I say, it's important for you to have your cameras on, all right? And next thing, please don't take this seriously, all right? It's not something, as I say, threatening or menacing. It's just something that they also want me to tell you that, for example, at some point, sometimes you're going to have some technical problems, right? And therefore, you're not going to be able to have your camera on. So if that happens, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take you out of the class, but just for a while. Why? Because if you notice, dear students, the link, I send it to the WhatsApp group, right? And that is always going to be our procedure. I'm going to be sending the WhatsApp link, excuse me, the Zoom link to the WhatsApp group. And if you, of course, think about it, that means that you're able to join me and to join us at every point during the class. Therefore, if I take you out just because maybe you're struggling with these technical problems and you don't have your camera on, please, you can come back immediately as long, of course, you are able to fulfill with the policy. So this is something that I wanted to, of course, clarify. And as I say, it's not something threatening or menacing. Please don't take it that way. It's just something that I think that the company is trying to do for your own well-being, right? To secure that the learning and to secure that all the content we are going to be discussing, it's going to be something received by you with all the perception and reception standards, right? So please have this on mind, okay? As you can see, it's very important to have your camera on in conclusion as a summary of everything we have discussed until this point. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say, but thank you very much for having listened to that, all right? Great. Well, now it's time for us to discuss more general and, of course, somehow enjoyable things. We're going to have classes from Tuesdays until Fridays, as I was mentioning. And that's great because, well, we're going to have 4 days, if you notice, per week. And this is going to help our purpose of having blended learning classes, as I told you. And what I mean by blended learning is that we're going to have the opportunity to combine theory and practice. As I told you, when I was preparing myself for the exam, I found this to be essential for a good performance on the exam. Because many people that I have known through my, of course, experience as a professor, they like to emphasize very much on practice. But I think that is actually wrong. And it's quite, let's say, it's quite incomplete. Because when you're merely practicing for the TOEFL exam, you lose the opportunity to understand the exam. Because when you understand the exam and all the patterns that exist within it, I think that the execution of the process to respond is way more understandable and way more constant, because many people, it has happened, that they practice and practice and practice, and they make a lot of simulations, and they have wonderful notes or wonderful scores, I'm sorry, in their simulations. They receive 100, 105. Some people even receive 110 and above. But when they go to the exam, they actually find out that, I don't know, their simulations were a little bit undated, or they were a little bit, I don't know, maybe they were just not as the exam was actually going to take place, or as the exam would be organized. So they, of course, didn't receive the desired qualification they were looking for. Therefore, when you understand the exam, it doesn't matter if you are taking a simulation or if you are taking the actual exam, your qualification, the score you receive is going to be constant. And of course, we want to have a very good performance on our practices and also on the exam, right? That is the most important thing. Therefore, by understanding the exam with these theoretical classes, trust me that you're going to have a very good glance of the patterns and the structure of the exam, so that at the end, you're not going to merely be able to perform on the practices, but you're going to understand what you're doing, right? Why is it that a correct response represents a correct response? Why is it that the other responses that are actually wrong have that particular status? That is to say, why are they wrong? You're going to understand these things, right? Not just clicking on the right responses and that's it. Okay, but very good. So this is our structure or organization. But please don't take this to be super rigid or something that is going to be, I don't know, as I say, as rigid as a rock or something like that. Because actually, we're going to try to be very much flexible. I think that flexibility is certainly something that and of course, in your case, you're going to find very much enjoyable in these classes. That, for example, at some point, you're going to have some troubles with the theory, especially in sections that require a more theoretical analysis. And if that happens, let's say that we can augment one class to our theoretical endeavors, and thus we're going to have 3 theoretical classes and just 1 practice. That's totally fine, right? Or on the contrary, if I see and I perceive that you are grasping the theoretical part very well and that you got it in less than 2 classes, fantastic. We're going to have more practices, right? As I say, you can look at this as a very flexible structure, but of course, we're going to try to respect it as much as we can, right? But as I said, you can take this very much flexibly. Well, fantastic. Let us continue then with our presentation. So, well, now that we have discussed those general aspects of the classes we're going to have, it's time as well for us to discuss a little bit of the exam, right? As such. Well, the TOEFL exam, if you didn't know this, it stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language. That's what TOEFL means, right? Test of English as a Foreign Language. At some point, this information can be helpful. I don't know, maybe somebody asks you, what on earth is the TOEFL exam? So you can respond to, well, Test of English as a Foreign Language, right? Now, the TOEFL exam, by the way, is a very old exam. The first year this exam was released was 1964. As you can see, it's a very, very long exam. And imagine how many people have taken it since that time, right? Given that this is the most famous and recognized exam over the entire world in order for you to certify your English level. Just imagine how many people have taken it. But well, as I say, the TOEFL exam, because it's a very, very famous and international examination, has different versions and modalities you can take. And that is something beautiful about this exam, that you're not going to be facing something that is very rigid. As I say, many examinations that also, of course, share this purpose of certifying and guaranteeing somehow your English proficiency are very rigid. And that is something that I don't like, actually. That is to say, in this exam, you're going to be able to find versions or modalities that are going to be, well, accommodating themselves to you. That is to say, to your preferences. The first version or modality, and by the way, as I say, these modalities exist in the TOEFL exam. That is to say, you can take this exam in different modalities. What I mean is that you can choose what modality to take when you are enrolling or registering yourself for the exam. That's what I mean. That when you are registering yourself for the exam, you are the one who chooses what modality to take, right? Of course, depending on the availability of that modality in your country, right? So let us discuss then the first modality that exists, just for you to have it clear. As you can see, this is the first one, and it's the most common one as well. And it's probably the one that you're going to take. I think, well, 70, 80% of test takers go for this one. And I think it's fine because it's certainly the most famous one. And well, I think that because of its reasons, it stands as a very good option, right? And this is the IVT modality or the IVT version that stands for Internet-Based Test. Now, this IVT version, as I say, is the most common version, is the favorite one of test takers around the world. And it basically consists in the following. The first thing you do, of course, is to enroll yourself for the exam, right? And in order to do so, you have to have an account. You have to enroll yourself in ETS website. Oh, and this is very important. Whenever I say ETS, because that is a word that I'm going to be repeating very much throughout those courses, okay? And you're going to notice it. When I say ETS, what I mean is ETS is the company that has created this exam in the first place, and that continues to administer it and to organize it around around the world. So as I mentioned, this ETS company is the one that organizes the exam, that invented the exam, that creates material for the exam, that of course deliver the scores you get in the exam, that helps you with all the services, technical support, etc., and certainly, of course, the one that in this case is going to be hosting you for the IVT version. And let me explain that. So the first thing you do is when you want to, of course, take the TOEFL exam, it doesn't matter what modality or version you want to take. The first step for all the TOEFL exams, okay, when you want to take them, is to have an account in ETS website. But as I say, it's a company that has entire control over the exam. So you go to ETS and you look for this. I'm going to be pasting this to the WhatsApp group, so don't worry. And it's this. You have to create yourself an account in ETS website. And by the way, this same account is going to work for you at some point later on, maybe, because ETS doesn't merely organizes and administers the TOEFL exam. They also organize all their very famous examinations, as for example, the GRE. Probably if you are thinking about applying to master degrees in foreign countries in which English is the native language, you are probably have you have probably heard about this exam, right? That is very important for people who are, as I say, planning to take master degrees in foreign countries. Well, and many other exams, right? But in this case, we are, of course, interested about the TOEFL exam. So we get into this. Okay, fantastic. So as you can see, this is a very common interface as the one that you also see when you are, I don't know, creating an account to Facebook or into Instagram or something like that. You, of course, have to create an account, the first step. And in order to do so, you just click on here and you're going to be able to see all the menu, and they ask you a lot of questions. Where are you from? Where are you living? You respond to all those questions very, very carefully, because of course the information you provide there is also going to be established and it's going to be delivered in your scores, right? That is to say, when you have your score paper, or when you receive your score receipt, what happens is that you have all your information there, right? Your ID, your passport, you have your address, you have your name, you have your last name, etc., etc. So everything you introduce in this account you are creating and the information they require you to post is very important for you to fill it correctly. Okay, so please take your time in order to do this. Don't do it fastly or, as I say, irresponsibly. Okay, because it's going to be a trouble to correct that later on. Okay, so when you create your account, you just have to sign in. Of course, as you can see here, I have my account, and I'm going to be logging into my account precisely. So let me log in, and well, as you can see, it's very easy to register for the exam because the first thing you see, and of course, is the most highlighted thing, is this button that says register, find test center states. Oh, and I had said that I would be pasting this, right, to the WhatsApp group. Didn't do it. Well, here you have. There you are. So you can just, as I say, get into this link, and you're going to be able to create your account or to log in. Well, you go in here, you press on this button that says Find Test Center. And as you can see, the first thing you have to do is to select or to choose your modality, the modality you're going to be preferring for taking the exam, right? In this case, I am from Bolivia. Therefore, in my country, as you can see, I have two different versions available for me. I have the TOEFL IBT version, that is the one we're going to discuss right now. And then I have the TOEFL IBT Home Edition. That is a version we're going to discuss later on. But as I say, in other countries, there's one more modality that is called the PBT version that we're also going to discuss. But nonetheless, it's not very common in South America or Central America. So you're probably not going to take that one. But if it is available in your country, and when we discuss it, you like the idea, you find it to be attractive, of course, go for it, right? If it is available. As I say, everything depends on the availability that ETS has in your country, all right? Fantastic. So let's say I want to go for the IBT version. I choose it. And what happens next? What happens next, dear students, is that, as you can see, it says find test centers at or near this location. And here you have to enter a city and country where you are living in right now and where you would like to take your exam. As I mentioned, for this modality, the IBT version, the most important characteristic and trait of such modality is that you have to go in person to a physical place, building, institution, could be a university, could be an institute, could be a high school. And as I say, within this institution, that is a physical institution, you have to go there and you're going to take your exam in person, as I say, hosted by this particular place. And of course, not all places, buildings, universities are authorized to host this exam and to deliver it. Therefore, when you enter here your city, as I can do, for example, here, I write, I don't know, Santa Cruz, for example, Bolivia, right? Where I am living right now. If I go for this, right, Santa Cruz, Bolivia, and also here I have to choose some dates, right, in which I would like to take the exam. Let's say I want to take it, in dates ranging from November until December. As you're going to be able to see here, if I press continue, it's going to show me some institutions and places where I can take the exam. And here, as you can see, I have available dates. And as I told you, everything here in the TOEFL exam works with availability. ETS has dates, institutions, depending always on the availability in your own city and country, okay? So that's the reason why the first thing you have to do is to introduce your city, where you're going to take the exam, not where you are from, because maybe you are living in another country, right? And as you can see here, when I introduced the dates in which I wanted to take the exam, from November until December, you can choose any other date instead, from January to February if you want to take it in those months, or for example, from March to June. I don't know, you can decide that range by yourself. As you can see here, it gives me options, and that is because, as I told you, everything depends on the availability. Therefore, as you can see here, in December 3rd, on December 3rd, actually, I can take this exam in Centro Boliviano Americano, which is the CBA in Santa Cruz. I don't know if you know that. If you are from Santa Cruz, of course you know it. But as you can see, I can take the exam in there. And that's because this particular institution is, as I say, authorized to host the exam, to deliver it, etc., etc. Okay? So the only thing I wanted to clarify is that you have to choose one physical place where you're going to take the exam from the options and from the different possibilities that the TOEFL ETS website allows you to. It's not, as I say, that you can propose where to take your exam or something like that. Sadly, it doesn't work that way. But as I mentioned, they give you the range of possibilities available to your circumstances and, most importantly, to the city you're living in. Okay, great. So as you can see, if I would like to take it in December, I will have to take it in December 3rd in this place, right? And if I would like to take it in December 17th, I could take it here in this other place, as you can see, in digital language service that I don't know what it said, but I could take it there. Well, awesome. Now, what else? As I was mentioning, after you choose your test center, that is the building, the institution where you're going to take the exam. In this case, I have these two options for me in December, the CBA and this other place that I had never heard about, digital language services. You choose the one that you like the most. Maybe there's one that you have heard has better equipment, I don't know, or maybe it's just more nearby your home. Fantastic, you choose it, right? After you do that, the next thing, as I say, it's, well, you have to pay your fees. As you can see right now, the fees for the exam are $190, and this changes from time to time. Now, it doesn't change dramatically, by the way. It's not like, for example, I can give you a date in which the exam is merely $100 or something like that. The exam, with regard to its price, changes very, well, I would say very much shortly, because you can find differences from $10 to $15, but not more than that. Excuse me, but not more than that. You're never going to have, for example, as I say, a date or a specific month throughout the year in which, for example, it's merely $100 or $50. Sadly, it doesn't work like that. So as I say, you can just, well, depending on when you want to take the exam, you're going to receive a particular fee, and well, you just have to go for that one and pay it. There's no other way to do this, right? After you pay, as I say, you're going to receive, of course, well, your receipt, etc. And what happens after that? When you go for this IBT version, the only thing you have to do when you register and when you finalize this process, that as I say, it's very easy. You simply pay and you receive your receipt and your confirmation, etc. The only thing you do next is to prepare yourself. And on the date of the exam, imagine that you chose December 3rd in this case. The only thing that remains is to go to your test center on that day, December 3rd. In this case, if I would like to take it in the CBA, the Centro Boliviano Americano, well, I will have to go on this particular date and take it there in person. As I say, I'll have to go. Of course, when you register, they give you the time. It's normally in the morning, but nonetheless, of course, everything depends on the institution that is going to be hosting the exam. Okay, awesome. So, and by the way, the second most important characteristic of the IBT version is that your exam, when you arrive to your test center, there are going to be staff members from ETS, people who work for ETS, waiting for you. And what they are going to do is to introduce you to a computation room. They're going to take you within a computation room, and in that computation room, you are going to take the exam. In this computation room, there are a lot of computers. Okay, that's the reason why I call it like that. You're going to have a lot of computers, a lot of tables, chairs, as I say, a lot of equipment. And that's the reason, of course, why this is IBT version, internet-based test, because you have to take the exam through a computer. Everything you're going to be taking in the exam, your reading, also your writing, your speaking, your listening, everything is going to be through a computer. You're going to write your essays for the writing section on keyboard. You're going to be listening through headphones connected to the computer. You're going to be reading material on the screen. You're going to be speaking in your, of course, in your exercises for the speaking section through a microphone that is connected to the computer. Everything is going to be through a computer that they provide you. You don't have to bring with you your computer. Actually, you don't have to bring with you anything apart from your ID. And that is, of course, that is going to be part of the instructions they give you and all, but the only thing you have to bring with you on that day is your ID, no more than that. And that is good because they don't actually let you enter the computation room with any other thing. If you are, for example, thinking about bringing with you your pencils or your notebooks or something like that, or some sheet of papers to take notes, they don't allow you to do so. If you need to take notes, they give you paper. If you need to write down something, they give you the pencil. They don't want you to introduce within the computation room anything, okay, apart from you. So as I say, you don't have to worry about anything else when you finalize your payment for this version. All the equipment you need, all the papers you need, all the pencils you need, everything you need is the institution you have chosen, the one that is going to provide it to you, okay? As I say, they provide for everything. They provide for the computer, they provide for the material you need, etc., etc. And if, for example, on that day you have some technical issues with your computer, don't worry. As I say, that's the reason why there is well, there are in this case different staff members from ETS that are able, of course, to support you if there's any technical trouble with your computer. Maybe, I don't know, maybe your computer disconnects or, I don't know, freezes. Therefore, there is somebody there in order to help you. You just raise your hand and they come to help you, or of course to change your computer if something goes definitely wrong. Well, and that's it with regard to this version. Okay, you take it through a computer. Now we have, after all, the home IBT version. Okay, but as I told you, is the other version that is available, at least in my country. And the TOEFL IBT home edition, as you can see, it's very similar to the first one we have discussed, the TOEFL IBT version. The only difference here, dear students, is that you don't have to go to a test center in order to take this exam. The only thing you do is to, well, to enroll yourself. As you can see, if I press continue, I have to enroll myself. And here I'm going to be receiving, as you can see, well, of course, the available date for me to take the exam. Here, certainly, because this is at home, you don't have to, well, you don't have many restrictions with regard to when to take the exam. You can take it on many dates, right? Because as I say, you have to take the exam at home. You are not even going to leave your room in order to take the exam. You don't have to go to a test center to do it, not anymore, because with this version, as I mentioned, you are not required to leave your room, but actually everything you're going to take on the exam is going to be at home and using your own computer. And that's the second thing I wanted to mention. In this case, that characteristic is shared between the IVT version and the home IVT version. You're going to take your exam using a computer. Your reading passages are going to be delivered on the screen. Your writing is going to be with your own keyboard, with your own mouse. You have to, of course, or you need to get some headphones with microphone incorporated in order to speak and listen connected to your computer. But as I mentioned, everything is going to be with your own equipment, your own computer, your own keyboard, your own mouse, everything, right? And this is very important, with your own internet. So, of course, there are some restrictions with regard to the model of the computer they are going to allow for the exam. For example, if you have a very old computer, probably they are not going to accept it. But if you have a very average computer, they are probably going to accept it and allow you to take the exam with that computer. Anyways, with regard to characteristics for what computers are acceptable for the exam, etc., you have to get into your account, register for the exam, and they are going to tell you if you meet those criteria or those characteristics. I cannot tell you what module specifically they are asking for right now, because they constantly change that, okay? So as I say, you have to choose your date, and that's the only thing you do, because, well, you don't have to go to a test center. Now, of course, this version has its difficulties because, as I say, you're going to take it at home and with your own internet. Therefore, imagine that something goes wrong with your internet just on that day of the exam. That's your problem. They are not there to help you, right? Because you're not in that, physical place. They cannot offer you technical support apart from telling you what to do, but nobody's going to come and take the computer and take control of it and help it, or I don't know, solve or fix the problem. As I say, here you're taking a lot of responsibilities. And also, in order to take notes for this version, the home IVT version, you are not allowed to take notes on normal paper using, I don't know, a normal pencil or pen. In order to take notes for this section, and we're going to be discussing that later on, you need to have a whiteboard. You know what is a whiteboard, right? Una pizarra blanca with erasable marker, and you need to get a very small whiteboard, a desktop whiteboard, and there you have to write down your notes, okay, using that whiteboard and erasable marker, of course, right? Because a whiteboard, given that it's small, has limited space, therefore you have to constantly write down and erase in order to continue writing notes. And, well, certainly you have somebody who is going to be looking at you through the webcam, making sure nobody cheats on the exam or something like that. Therefore, you always have to be in the visual camp of this person. If you get out of it, you're going to be banned from the exam, right? So as I say, that person is going to be constantly observing you. And as I mentioned, you have to, well, in this case, you have to take your notes in front of this person through the webcam. But, well, as you can see, it has its difficulties. You have to make sure that you have a good internet, good computer that doesn't freeze out or something like that. You have to consider all these things, okay? Now, there's one last version, and that is the PVT version. And this version is not very much common. As you can see, it's not available in my country. And that's because this version was mostly created for African countries, because this PVT version is basically the same than the IVT version, with the only and solely exception that in this case, you don't actually have to take the exam through a computer, but you have to take it using some paper instead of a computer. Everything you're going to be writing down, everything you're going to be reading, everything you're going to be speaking, everything you're going to be listening is not going to be through a computer, but it's going to be, as I mentioned, on paper, all right? You have to write down with your own hands. Everything is on paper. Of course, it was designed for countries in which internet is definitely an issue and connection is not guaranteed, right? But given that we live in South America and Central America, it's not that difficult to access the IVT version or the PVT version that, well, according to most test takers, are certainly the most comfortable ones, because we are living in the 21st century and it's not difficult nor a mystery to use a computer, right? So, well, as you can see, those are the three versions of the TOEFL exam. and you have to choose the one that suits you better, that, as I told you, accommodates to your preferences. Think about it, okay? You can think about it. Fantastic. Well, before you make some questions, let me here continue a little bit. All right. Why should you take the TOEFL exam? And then I'm going to give you time to make questions. Three main reasons. First of all, to be accepted in a university abroad. Most people do it because of this reason. Most people take it because they are trying to apply to American or European universities. Fantastic. It works for that purpose because this exam is credited and is, as I told you, recognized in more than 158 countries. Therefore, you're never going to have the problem, for example, of sending this scores to a university, I don't know, in Ireland, for example, or in Switzerland, and the university saying, but what is the TOEFL exam? We don't know this, right? That is not going to happen because this is, as I told you, the most prestigious exam and it's recognized all over the world. Therefore, you're not going to have any issue or problem with being with having your scores in this exam accepted in any university around the world. Okay, so never please worry about that. And second reason why people take exams is because they are applying to scholarships, and that is a very good reason as well. Because when you are, of course, taking the opportunity to go for a scholarship, you're going to be competing against the most talented students around the world. And that is certainly something that implies a lot of preparation and that you have to look for manners to stand out from the rest. And if you have a very high score in the TOEFL exam, of course, that you get a very high chance and possibility to get the scholarship, right? When compared to other test takers. And finally, it could help you getting a job, right? Many people have a lot of students who took these classes and the exam as well because they were trying to apply to remote jobs. I don't know, working for Amazon, living in, I don't know, in South America, living in Chile, living in Argentina, living in Colombia. Great, fantastic, living in Peru, but working for, for international companies, for Google, working for who knows what, for Facebook. And there are a lot of possibilities here. So as I say, all of these options require you to take the exam because you want to demonstrate your proficiency in the exam. You need to demonstrate that you're able to speak English with a fluent and proficient manner. And that is certainly something that all these institutions are looking for, universities, companies, and different other institutions. Now, let us talk about, before you make your questions, about this. As you can see here, these are the 4 different sections of the TOEFL exam. We have reading, we have listening, we have speaking, and we have, we have reading, we have speaking, we have reading, we have listening, we have speaking, and we have writing. These are the 4 sections of the TOEFL exam. And by the way, you always take the exam, and these sections come to you in this order. You start with the reading section, you go then with the listening section immediately. By the way, there is no rest or break from section to section. You go with the reading, you finalize it, you go with the listening, you finalize it. And at that point, in the middle of the exam, you have 10 minutes break, okay? You have a 10 minutes break. But apart from that, there is no other moment to breathe during the exam. You have to constantly be doing exercises, listening to something, reading something, writing something, or speaking. After you come back from your 10 minutes break, you have to go for the speaking section. That, as you can see, is the shortest of all sections because the reading and the listening last for approximately 1 hour, both of them, okay, or each of them in this case. The reading 60 minutes, the listening 60 minutes approximately, and the speaking is the shortest because in this case, it is merely 20 minutes, right? You're going to be taking this part of the exam for merely 20 minutes. Afterwards, the writing section is the final part of the exam. As I say, this is always the order that is respected in the exam. The writing section is always the last part to be addressed. And you have to, as I say, in this case, you have to write down different essays in 50 minutes. And when you make your calculations, you come up with an exam that lasts for approximately 3 hours and a half, right? That is the entire duration of the exam. And of course, you need to be prepared for that mentally and physically, right? Because normally in South America and Central America, we don't have exams this long. We normally have examinations that last for 1 hour or maximum 2 hours, but 3 hours and a half is certainly a challenge, right? For people who are not used to this. Now, last thing I wanted to say, as you can see here, we have 4 sections, and the score for these 4 sections works in the exact same manner. Each section is scored and reviewed in a spectrum of 0 until 30. I repeat, you have each section, the reading, the listening, the speaking, the writing, scored and punctuated in a range from 0 until 30. That is to say, the reading section is evaluated from 0 as the minimum qualification you could receive in this part, and a maximum of 30, right? That represents certainly a perfect reading, let's say in English. And then you have listening, as I say, also the qualification you receive it in a spectrum from 0 to 30. 0 that you don't understand anything with regard to listening, right? And 30 that you have fantastic listening that is almost perfect. The speaking from 0 to 30 as well is evaluated on a spectrum from 0 to 30. 30 meaning that you have a full developed speaking, able to communicate very, very complex expressions with a very high level of clarity and also understanding. So as I say, it's a very, very important thing. And also the writing from 0 to 30, right? As a maximum qualification. So of course, when you take the exam, all these scores are taken individually, but at the end, what ETS does is to give you a final score. They sum up everything, they sum up or they add the reading, the listening, the speaking, and the writing. And at the end, you have a final score or a final qualification. And that final qualification can be from 0 until 120. That is the maximum qualification you can get in the exam. As I repeat, from 0 until 120. 120 means that you have the best English of the world, you are almost perfect on it, and 0 that certainly you don't have any understanding nor knowledge on this language, right? So as I say, and this is important, there is no an approval qualification for this exam. Many people say, how much do I need in order to approve the exam? And I always say, well, there is no way to approve the exam because there is no such a thing, as I say, as an approval qualification or score. This exam measures your level of English. It doesn't tell you if you approve or fail, because as I say, there is no failure or approval. What it happens is that you need to take all these scores in context. Institutions, universities, companies around the world ask for different scores. For example, if you are taking this exam in order to apply to Harvard, I don't know, and to be studying in Harvard University, right? The most famous university of the world and the most prestigious one. What they do is that they require people, if they want to apply to its institution, to get at least 109 in the TOEFL exam. I repeat, 109 out of 120. Therefore, they are asking for a very high qualification, but it's because they are Harvard, right? But nonetheless, for example, if you're trying to apply to a more modest university in the US, normally, for example, scores, for example, I applied in 2021 to American universities, and there was a university called Wheaton College that merely asked me for having 70 in the TOEFL exam. Okay, so as you can see, everything depends on the institution. You have to go to your institution where you want to send this score and tell them how much would it be fine for you in the TOEFL exam. If I get, for example, 70, are you satisfied with that? Or it's fine for you? And if they say yes, well, of course you go for 70 or something above. But if they say we need at least 100, well, you have to go for 100, right? As I say, you have to take everything on that perspective. And of course, if you get, or if you are always having scores that are very much nearby to 120, that means that it's a very good score, right? For example, last week I was reading an article by a very famous magazine in the US called Prep Scholar. Probably you have heard about it. And they said that they made their calculations and they had their data. And they said that in a very, very recent study and research on this subject, they discovered that for the TOEFL exam, according to Prep Scholar, as I say, this very famous magazine in the US, according to Prep Scholar, merely 5% of test takers managed to get more than 105 in the exam. I repeat, merely 5% of the students managed to get more than 105 in the exam. Therefore, 95% of people who take the exam get less than 105, and just 5% of the students or test takers manage to get more than 105. So as you can see, it's complicated to have high scores. Nonetheless, if you're looking for scholarships or to stand out for a particular position in a company, it's great to look for these high qualifications, right? Fantastic. So that's it with regard to the organization of the exam and with regard to the structure as well. Great. So it's time for you to make questions. Any question, dear students, with regard to the TOEFL exam or any particular point we have discussed until this instance, anything that I can clarify, please tell me. Claudia or Selena, questions?
It's okay for me.
Okay.
I understand, and tomorrow I active my camera.
Oh, yes. No, yeah, no worry. Thank you very much. It's totally fine. Selena, thank you. What about you, Claudia? Do you have any question? Is it fine for you? Something I could clarify, maybe?
When are we going to have our scores? If we take, for example, the exam on 15th of November.
Okay. Well, very good question. So let's say that you take it, as you said, on November 15th. Fantastic. So what happens is that when you finalize the exam, as I told you, this is always the order of the exam. At the end of the exam, when you finalize the writing section, the computer allows you to know how much you got in the reading section and the listening section. And this is possible because, of course, all those questions have a correct answer, and therefore the computer can easily analyze and correct the results, right? If you, for example, if they made 30 questions in the reading section, just an example, right? If they made 30 questions in the reading section and you got 25 of those responses correctly, then they are going to give you a score at that time. And the same for the listening, because the reading and the listening are merely questions, right? That can be easily corrected because are multiple choice questions. But nonetheless, with regard to the speaking and the writing section, they don't tell you your score at that same time. You have to wait for approximately 1 to 2 weeks for ETS to send you your score for the speaking and the writing section. And that's because the computer doesn't analyze the speaking or the writing section. A professional in the area that is, of course, hired by ETS is the one who listens to your responses in the speaking part and the one who reads your papers on the writing section, and he is the one who determines your score, right? That's the reason why they take more than, that's the reason why they take longer than in the reading and the listening section that are, as I say, revealed immediately. So responding to the question, you're gonna receive your scores for the reading and the listening at the same time you finalize the exam, but the speaking and the writing and your overall score, you're going to receive it, as I mentioned, 1 or 2 weeks later as a maximum, but that's how you receive it. Is that clear, dear Claudia? Anything that I could clarify?
Yes. So, for example, if I want to apply to a UK university, when
Yes.
they deliver the information to there?
Well, let's say if you're taking it this November 15th, it would mean that you're going to receive your scores at a maximum till, I don't know, November 30, maybe, or December 1st. I don't know. But as I say, let's have December 1st as your top. The maximum date you could receive your exams or your score exams would be on November 1st. Oh, excuse me, December 1st. If you take it, let's say on November 15th. Nonetheless, well, as I say, that can vary. It could be less than that, maybe just 1 week. Maybe on November 22nd, you already have, you already get them, but as a maximum, December 1st.
Okay, thank you.
All right, my pleasure. Okay, great. Any other question, dear students? Anything that I could clarify here as well? No questions? Great. All right, so very quickly then, let's get to know each other. Okay, I think this is important because, as I told you, we're going to be building a family here, so it's good for us to know each other, I think, very well. Great. Well, let me start with my self-introduction, because professors always start, right? So let's say that I'm going to start. So as you can see, my name is Carlos Oliveira. As I told you, I've taken this exam twice in my life, and the first time was in 2020. And that year I got 100, and the second time I took it was in 2021, last year, and at that time I got 110. And the reason why I show you my scores is because, well, I want to motivate you, because the first time, for example, I took a simulation, I remember that I got 70 out of 120. So as you can see, I took that not as a positive thing, excuse me, because I was looking for higher scores. And therefore I practiced and I prepared myself. And as I told you, through practice and constance and a very good understanding of the exam, it's possible to get high scores, okay? So please have that in mind. Don't get unmotivated by the difficulties of the exam. If it is complex, don't worry, because as I say, with practice and a correct understanding of it, it's very, very possible to ace your score and to get very high qualifications, okay? Great, and well, with regard to the rest, I am a law assistance engineering student, about to finish my studies. And well, apart from that, I like reading, I enjoy studying, and well, basically doing anything that has to do with learning, right? Well, great, and that's about me. Now it's time for you to talk about you. Let me give you here the things that I would like to hear from you. Please start with your name. Where are you from? Why are you taking the course with us? And do you need a specific score in the TOEFL exam? That could be very much revealing for me to know more or less where we should, of course, emphasize, or what things should we, I don't know, maybe dive into a little bit deeper. It could be fine, right? But great. Do I have some volunteer to start with this self-introduction? No? Should I pick somebody? Great. So, Selena, would you like to start, please, with your introduction? Can you listen to me, Selena?
Okay, sorry. My
Yes, no, it's okay.
internet is very bad.
Yeah.
My name is Selena. I am from Bolivia. Okay, I want to. Do you listen to me?
Yes, yes, I can.
Yes.
Yes, yes, you can
My
continue.
internet is wrong. It's mal.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. Continue.
I want to take okay. I want to take the course because my sister suggested me, and al año next. How do you say al año? I forget. Sorry.
Next year. Next year.
Yeah, next year. Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, next year I would like to travel with a program. Yes.
Mhm.
So I would like to take the test of TOEFL.
Oh, great, great, fantastic. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Selena. Fantastic, great, great to know that. Thank you very much for joining us. I say it's a pleasure to meet you then. And well, fantastic. We're going to be working them towards that score in order for you to participate in that program next year. Thank you. Thank you, Selena. Okay, Claudia, please go ahead with your introduction.
Yes, my name is Claudia. I am 25 years old. I study history at Pontificia Universidad Católica del Perú. And now, so I want to have a master in history. I need to take the exam. And I really need a score above 100. So I have to hit the books, basically. So yes, I don't know what else to say. I don't know. That's all.
Okay.
I enjoy reading books. So my career is about humanities. I need to have like a deep knowledge in English. So I
Yes.
need the course.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much, Claudia. Well, great. I had never known a person who studies history before. It's great. It's fantastic. I love history as well. I enjoy reading history very much. But great, great, great to have you, and great to know that you are pursuing that master degree. Always a fantastic opportunity, right? And great that you're going for a high score as well. Don't worry, I know how it's set. So we're going to be working towards that in order to get that 100 and above. So thank you very much, Claudia, for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here. Okay, great. Well, great. So we're gonna finalize here. Okay, dear students. I'm going to be sending very important information to the WhatsApp group, so please pay attention to the messages I'm going to send. And last thing I wanted to show you is the schedule in this case, or the general structure we're going to have for these classes. This week, that is the first week of these courses, we're going to be talking about the speaking section, okay? And the speaking section, we have divided it in this case in 4 different topics or modules, let's say, here at the company. And that's because the speaking section itself in the exam is divided into 4 different tasks you're going to discover. So tomorrow and for the rest of this week, we're going to be discussing the first task of the speaking section. Second week, as you can see, we're going to be discussing the speaking 2 and 3. On the third week, we're going to be discussing speaking 4 and writing 1. We're going to be moving on towards another section. On the fourth week, we're going to be discussing writing 1 and 2. Fifth week, reading, and the last week of our courses, listening section. As you can see, overall, you're going to have a full preparation for the entire exam for all the sections on it. And as I say, please, I see you tomorrow in order to start with this very important topic that is the speaking section. And that is, of course, for most people, the most difficult part of the exam, right? So we're going to start discussing that tomorrow for the entire week, actually. But I see you tomorrow at the same time, all right? In order to start. And last thing I wanted to say, at the end of each class, we are always going to have, of course, I'm going to take your assistance, okay? Because I have a list and I have your names there. So please always stay until the last part of the class, because I need to take your assistance, given that, as you know, one of the benefits I told you for having chosen Executive English is that you're going to receive a certificate for these classes without mattering the exam or the score you receive later on the exam, right? You're going to have a certification because you have finalized these courses that is, well, in this case, that is authorized and that is recognized by an American university. So please, if you want to receive that certificate, stay until the last part of the class and say present, okay? In order for you to have evidence that you have been here in class, okay? Great, so we're going to do that right now. I'm going to take your assistance before you go. And the last thing, every single class at the end, I'm going to have a poll, okay, with you. You know what is a poll, right? A poll, it's basically a vote process in which, well, in this case, it's going to be an anonymous poll. I am not able to see who responds what, and etc. As I say, it's anonymous, but it's going to be a poll with regard to the class. If you understood the class, if you found it to be well prepared, if I managed to respond to your questions, all of that, okay? And as I say, this poll is anonymous, but of course, I appreciate your kind responses, okay? You help me a lot with that. So I'm gonna be delivering this poll every single time at the end of our classes, and today is going to be the first time, okay? So please help me with that. Look at your screen, and as I take your assistance, help me with that poll you are seeing right now on your screen, okay? Fantastic. So let me look for your names now. And if you have any other question, any other commentary, please tell me. Okay, here you are. Okay, just a second. All right, awesome. So Tapia Selena. You can say present, dear Tapia. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, you're present. Very good. Hernandez Claudia.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Claudia. Well, the rest of your classmates were not here, so just gonna...
Sorry. I didn't listen you.
No, I just I was asking your name in order to check out the list. Don't worry, Selena. You got present.
Okay. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Well, great. Thank you very much, dear students, then, for your responses. It's been a pleasure to know you. Tomorrow, we're going to be discussing the speaking section, so I see you at the same time, okay? And have a wonderful night, right? See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.
See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.